Hey, John Gilroy here. I've done a lot of shows about supply chain security. Today, let's talk about airports and talk about supply chain security and some of the implications it has. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I'll be your moderator. Our guest in the virtual studio is Lou Karu, Area Vice President of U.S. SLED at Rubrik, R-U-B-R-I-K. Lou, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Are you recording this from the airport where your flight's been delayed? It should be appropriate, huh? Well, it looks like you're not.
Not today, but I'll be at an airport on Wednesday. So,
yeah. Recording this from Denver Airport because of a software attack. So I've done all kinds of shows about, supply chain security and software and hardware and this and that, but I've never thought of, looking around the airport, my backyard, Dulles Airport. So let's talk about airport security and maybe some of the key challenges that these people have. And we can go a whole long list of challenges, but give me what you think some of the challenges are.
Well, airports are so busy with so many different ways that they're engaging with different systems. You've got systems that are on premise. You've got applications that are in the cloud. You've got some applications that are being delivered by SaaS providers. And airports have to figure out, how do we protect all of that so we get passengers to where they need to go? We keep the economy of the municipality that the airport supports thriving. And that, operations remain smooth. Everyone wants their bag on time. Everyone wants to figure out what gate they need to get to. So all of that, super important for airports.
Over at the DoD, they talk about the attack surface. But if you look at the attack surface of an airport, it's physically large, but we have interconnected systems. We have, old systems. We have OT. We have operational technology we have to worry about. We have physical human beings coming and going. And then how about regulations? So we have 3 hours to talk about this, and so where does Rubrik fit in this crazy situation?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you said, airports are complex. They have a lot of critical infrastructure and lots of opportunities for massive disruption. Right? You get one compromised credential or one compromised supplier, a third-party application, or one of your SaaS providers compromised. And that can bring airport operations to a halt, really, really impact passenger experience. And I think, where Rubrik comes into this is we help airports recover when that bad incident occurs. Because in order to really ensure that operations stay functional, airports have to plan for when there is a breach, when there is a credential compromise, when the bad guys do get in, and how do you recover when that happens? And that's where Rubrik comes in. You do all these things to defend your perimeter and to defend the attack surfaces. But once somebody is in, how do you ensure you can recover? That's where we come in.
Let's start with compromise and maybe the attack surface and people trying to break in. So there is a attack system called ransomware, and there's companies out there with ransomware as a service. It seems to proliferate.
Oh, yeah.
And so how can Zero Trust break the whole attack surface of ransomware?
Yeah. So, once the bad guys are in, what they're trying to do is they're trying to move around laterally, right? Because if you don't have Zero Trust implemented, you trust everybody that's behind the perimeter. You trust everybody that's in the system. Sometimes you have insiders that are doing nefarious things too. And if you don't have Zero Trust, you're not protecting against that. Zero Trust, it continuously is verifying devices, connections, and people saying who they are. They are who they say they are. And that's so important because, you have the bad guys coming in, sitting on systems and waiting so they can learn behaviors and they can learn, when people have different shifts so that when they launch that malware and demand ransomware from you, they have so much more information because they've laid wait, traversed your systems. And Zero Trust is so important to ensure that they can't traverse, that you're continuously checking who's accessing what system. Otherwise, that ransomware becomes pretty hard to respond to.
The government has reacted a little bit to this, and they have some regulations here. The FAA must have some regulations and TSA. And so these mandates, they're hard enough if you've got, your data center down the hall, but your data center is spread out over miles of a huge campus. I mean, how do you handle those types of challenges with regulation?
Yeah, FSA and TSA, they want you to ensure security, right? They've got security standards that you've got to adhere to. And I do think that speaks to how you're protecting those different attack surfaces, whether it's on premise in that data center down the hall, or what you've got in cloud, or what you're accessing through a third party SaaS solution. And the other piece of that, though, is that they want you to be able to have rapid recovery too. So it's not just, again, protect the perimeter. It's, can you ensure that you've got immutable backups and that you are able to recover if you do get that attack and somebody does get inside, unfortunately.
Last week, I talked to a company about the software development lifecycle. And so they come up with a project, and the project is installed, and then they have to deinstall it and move on. And it's a regular process here. People know it. I'm thinking about a ransomware attack and even any kind of attack. So there's got to be, a similar type life of it. So there's reporting, there's containment, and recovery. And I think people forget about the last part, don't they?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. There's, when you have been attacked, where is your last good backup? How do I recover? Have you tested it? What applications are a priority? What are the most important services to get back up and running first? And have we tested how to recover those systems? There's people, there's process, and of course there's technology behind recovering from an attack. And have you rehearsed all of those pieces together?
There are all assessments now for software that comes off the shelf. People look at open source software, and the parallel is here with software that's getting installed on systems that airports use. And so should there be special types of assessment that vendors and supply chain should be subject to for third-party utilities going onto airport systems?
Well, I do think that vendor assessments, they do need to happen, where you enforce contractual security controls, you're testing for lateral movement. You absolutely do need to ensure that you're preventing indirect breaches. Absolutely.
It's 2026 here, and I have a White House memo in front of me that have to say artificial intelligence every 15 seconds, I think, but maybe 15 minutes. So AI's got to have some role in the whole defense for an airport security here.
Yeah.
And so what are some AI-powered defenses that maybe an airport can implement?
Yeah. And, it's a great question, because the bad guys are using AI, right? Yeah. And that's how they're just attacking at mass scale. So you got to be able to respond quickly and leverage AI yourself in protecting your perimeter and in being able to do a recovery. So being able to leverage AI to know what is the span of the attack, what is the blast radius of the attack, what are some variables that are happening in my backups that can be an indicator of malware having been injected into systems already, so that you can proactively see that, hey, we might have malware, and we might have an intruder already sitting on our systems that's been laying and waiting. So I think leveraging AI so that you can respond to attackers who are using AI is going to be critical to keep up. It's going to be so important.
I study words all the time. I was an English teacher many, many years ago, and there's a phrase that commonly is used for rubric. It's called robust recovery. So a robust and I think of some big, strong football player for the San Francisco 49ers as being robust rather than a weak and sickly recovery plan. So a robust recovery plan has got to be, first of all, have backups that aren't infected in and of themselves. I mean, this seems to be a good place to start for being robust, doesn't it?
100%. You don't want to be going back and checking every single backup manually from yesterday and day before yesterday and 3 days ago to see, is this one good? Is this one good? You want to be able to know, like 7 days ago, that's where my last good backup is. And you want to be able to recover in an automated way as well. So you want to have a workflow that allows you to recover from that last good backup that you've identified as 7 days ago, and be able to do that in an automated fashion too. So I think automated recovery workflows are also super important to a robust recovery.
Well, another aspect of robust is being fast. You can be 350 pounds. If it takes you 30 seconds to run a 40, you're not going to make the team.
Exactly.
So you got to be big and strong. But these guys, there's some 300-pound players that are around like 474. They're like, what?
Exactly.
Speed of recovery has to be part of this discussion, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Speed does matter because days versus hours for an airport to be down, huge, right? Just think about how you feel when you have a 2 hour or 3 hour delay. Imagine if an airport is down for days, and how disruptive that is to passengers, to the concession stands that are trying to provide food and beverage to folks going through. It's pretty critical to be fast to recover.
There's all kinds of ways to look at security. I mean, in Washington, D.C. area here, we have NIST, and I get in my little car and drive up to Gaithersburg and go in there, and they're famous for having checklists, and they checklist compliance.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, well, Lou, you're fine to go. You check. Well, guess what? There may be things that fall through the cracks and whatnot. And so beyond compliance, I mean, are there ways to go beyond compliance? I mean, if you sit down this afternoon with executives from an airport security and you say, well, hey, you did all the checkbox things, but you still got attacked. So how does Rubrik handle a situation where they want to go with the phrase above and beyond the call of duty,
Yeah, absolutely. I think compliance is important, but alone, it's not enough, right? You need to ensure that you have true resilience, a real ability to recover in the event of a ransomware attack. That means you have to have zero trust, immutable backups, air gap backups, supply chain oversight to strengthen defenses. And again, you have to have that recovery plan where you've prioritized what are my key applications that I need to get up and running first. You need to have tested that plan, and you need to see hey, is my most important minimum viable airport applications recoverable in the period that I need them to be recoverable to keep operations and passengers and bags coming and crews safe.
When I think of security, I think of big banks, and Chicago's full of banks. I've been there many times. And so, okay, a bank has to provide security. We know that. But a bank doesn't have people walking in and out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, does it? No, it doesn't. And a bank may be one building, in Chicago, but an airport, I mean, if you go to the Dallas airport, I was once returning a car at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. And so I got it and it said car rental, I was on the airport grounds, car rental return 7 miles. It's just physically, there's so many opportunities to attack there. I mean, this has got to be the next level up for providing security.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, just protecting the perimeter and trying to keep the bad guys out is not enough. Real security is assuming breach, assuming that you are going to have to recover at some point. So assuming disruption, planning for it, that's really what you got to plan for when you think about security now for an airport. And like you said, there's so many moving pieces. There's folks coming in and out, and different airports and different municipalities have different local laws and regulations as well that they've got to adhere to. It's not easy.
Well, planning means many things to many people. I have been in offices, and you have too, where you'd sit with someone and say, well, do you have a recovery plan? And they'd turn around in their swivel chair and they'd get a 3-ring notebook and they'd maybe blow the dust off it and then open it up and, oh, the guy who's before me did this. Yeah, we have a recovery. But it's just that, here it's January, everyone's New Year's resolution. I'm going to the gym 5 days a week.
Oh,
and then by March 1st, it's empty. And so how do you, what's the physically tabletop discussions? Get the plan off so how do you actually get humans to engage with recovery?
Yeah, I think there has to be coordination across IT, the vendors that you're working with for all of your priority applications, for your security controls, and all the federal and local agencies that are also impacted and would be involved in an emergency. So tabletop exercises, absolutely. And ensuring that that binder is updated, if that's what you're referring to, and that all the people who are engaged in a recovery are aware of who they're going to be working with. Do they know that you're going to be working with this local Department of Emergency Management? Do you know that you're going to be working with this particular federal agency should you experience a cyber attack? And you're going to need to enact this plan that's in a binder to recover. So I think dry running it is absolutely imperative. And then coordination and collaboration across all the people that are going to be involved in that recovery is absolutely imperative.
Talked to a lot of people about recovery, and many times they'll do a Zoom meeting with 10 people. I think dealing with humans, I think if you were in a room with 5 human beings that were responsible for airport's recovery process, there are so many subtle signals that are given when you ask a question and someone raises their eye, and then all of a sudden, so I'm thinking that rubric may be able to facilitate this whole process. Maybe nothing to do with software. Maybe it's just with understanding human beings and saying, hey, look, my name is Lou. I've been in 5 different airports in the last 6 months. And typically what happens is the people who do da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. And I can guarantee you that there are doors that are supposed to be locked in airports that aren't for the convenience of the employees. And so I think just theoretical but then practical. Has that been your experience, that the human beings face-to-face meeting with you, you look them in the eye, and just it has to be done that way, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. And one of the things I do enjoy about my role and the work that I get to do is that I do get to share experiences that other airports are having with other airports, and in public sector, in the federal space, in the airport space, in K through 12. Agencies and departments of the like want to know how others responded, how others are tackling, whether it's people logistics and people collaboration. So that part I enjoy sharing. Like, here's what this airport did over here to get over just some of the challenges that they had with working with multiple agencies, even their own folks themselves, accepting that this is their role in a recovery, and here's why they have to be a part of the planning and invested in that planning. And then I think, secondly, one of the things that Rubric does do for a lot of departments and agencies is we have something that doesn't pitch our product at all, but enables our customers to do a reenactment of how they would recover from an incident. And it's like a play, like you do in high school, right? Everyone gets a part, you get a role, you're the CIO, you're the CISO, and let's talk through and let's reenact how folks understand their roles in a recovery. And it's eye-opening. It's eye-opening for folks that participate in that. I enjoy doing that as well.
I have some eye-opening information for you. I deal with a lot of, let's say, security people, and they do software-based penetration tests, right? Well, I was talking to an anonymous person who's doing a physical penetration test of NIH, and they found a lot of doors that were supposed to be locked, and they weren't. I was shocked. Have you ever been shocked in these meetings and find out that you really haven't done what? I mean, what was your biggest shock in meeting with airport executives as far as cybersecurity goes?
Well, I think they've deployed a lot of security controls and did a lot of planning, even on recovery, for data and systems that are on premise, because that's where they started. Yeah. Most applications have been on premise for many, many years. But what's happened is you've had a lot of applications, because that's where vendors want to deliver them in the cloud or via SaaS. And some, applications needed to be moved to the cloud so that you can modernize them and deliver other services for that passenger experience and increase security at the airport through new applications that are delivered via cloud. And I think what's eye-opening is that the same security controls that were applied for systems that were deployed on premise were not applied to systems in the cloud. And thinking about who's accessing what as far as those applications in the cloud, are identities protected in the same way that they are on premise for applications in the cloud. I think that's very eye-opening, because it was an afterthought for some, and for some they haven't even really figured it out yet.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of so Lou walks into a meeting and they pull that little 3-ring binder off the shelf, and then you're the bearer of bad tidings. You go, well, you signed up for this software as a service. How has that been including in your recovery plan? Well, we got a great recovery plan. Well, what about, the hybrid cloud? Well, did you think that, no, our plan is perfect, it's flawless, we designed this 5 years ago. I mean, I think every organization has going to have a Lou walk in sooner or later and say the wrong thing. Well, maybe it's the right thing, but it has to happen like that, doesn't it? I mean, did you ever consider about this software as a service, how is that going to be backed up? And is that a part of the supply chain that can have an attack vector?
Yeah, is that recoverable? I try not to be the bearer of bad news, John. But
Hi, I'm Lou. Put that on your business card. Hi, I'm Lou. Bearer of bad news.
Yeah, I'm going to point out your flaws. I try not to be that person. But what I do focus on when I do have conversations is what are your critical applications and where do they sit now?
That's it.
So if they say, here's my top 5 critical applications, and secure access to employee-only areas is now an application accessed via the cloud. Okay, if that's one of your top 5 applications, because you can't have people that don't belong in secure access areas getting into those areas, right? That's a huge concern on many levels. Okay, so let's talk about that application that is not on premise. So how are you protecting it? How do you know who's accessing it? How do you know that you can recover access to that application if an identity is compromised?
And they may have Rubrik sitting on the shelf ready to be deployed. It's like, well, you don't have to buy anything new. Just use the tools that you already have and only apply them to new areas. And so I think this is what a lot of people don't realize is that Rubrik does. I've listened to many podcasts with Rubik. They talk about tabletop exercises. And a lot of times they'll say, well, you know what? You already have Rubik sitting here that can be used by. It's like, and then but exactly. This is like a surprise to most people. It's like, well, Lou, I thought you were here to $50 million. No. Use what you have because your needs have changed. And that's what people don't understand because they're so busy with busyness.
Absolutely. It's a lot of work to move applications to the cloud and to figure out what's going to be our relationship with our new SaaS provider and how are we going to get that implemented. So it's understandable that ensuring you can recover that key application sometimes gets overlooked or is a second thought, or it's not thought of to, hey, just activate the ability to protect what's in the cloud very easily with Rubrik, which is already protecting what you have on premise. Sometimes that's just, with all the busyness, not top of mind.
Yeah. I keep thinking of the busy mom with 4 kids and then she'll put her groceries on top of the car and then get all the kids and they're buckled in, they're all safe and drives off. It's not
or
intentional.
Have my glasses on top of my head and not be able to find them.
Yeah. It's not intentional. It's just with all the business of making these transitions, there's 30 other things to worry about in this crazy world we have now. And it's just especially I think in many federal situations or state situations is they're spending maybe 20 hours a week on compliance, not worrying about some of the other things and maybe someone like you can walk in and say, well, I'll take my glasses from the top of my head and put them on and say, well, have you considered this? Because you've been running around so much and I think that's a key to Rubrik because such a strong reputation in the federal and the state government. And I think many times with state local communities, they're going to have Rubrik somewhere. They can say, well, why don't you take and apply it to here? It's a perfect situation. I think that it's hard to walk into those situations where we have problems. So let's take a look at the next 4 or 5 years down the road. So if you had to tell someone what 3 or 4 things to do today that can help their cyber resilience for working in a high pressure world like an airport.
Yeah. Well, I think ensure that you are implementing a zero trust recovery plan and a zero trust recovery solution. Ensure that you've got immutable air gapped backups to recover from. Ensure that you extend the same policies for resilience and recovery on premise to all of your attack surfaces, cloud, SaaS. Hey, maybe there'll be another one coming up in 5 years that we can't, that we don't see right now, but ensure that you've got that standardization of cyber resilience and recovery across everything.
Yeah, and Rubrik, of course, is famous for having immutable recovery and making sure that the malicious actor doesn't place code in your backup, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one. But I think that's pretty well accepted. But I think the weakness is people don't realize that in software it's called scope creep, but it could be almost backup creep, where you don't even realize that there's backup responsibilities that you don't even realize you had to take consideration of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what happens, there's folks are so busy. How do we get that application up and running so that we can have that better passenger experience and a more modern digitized experience with our passengers and with the airlines. And sometimes also with the busyness, there might be, kind of a misunderstanding of what that application provider is doing for cybersecurity as well. And there might be some cybersecurity features with that application, but oftentimes there isn't the cyber resilience to recover as part of that software, a SaaS solution or what you're deploying in the cloud. So I think that's also important to note.
Well, we could go on for a long time here and talk about airport security, but it's a never-ending subject, but we're running out of time here. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Lou Karu, Area Vice President of U.S. SLED for Rubrik, RUBRIK. Thank you, Lou.
Thanks, John.